Happy New Year. Happy 2023, Bethany. Great to have you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm wonderful. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. This is episode number 106 of Tech Sales Insights. For those that are members of Sales Community, thanks. For those that are not, you can go to salescommunity.com and either do the paid membership, or I recommend that you click on the one that says winter free. If you do that, you get a free membership. And we are sponsored by Gong, who is one of the leaders or the leader in the tech sales stack. Started off in revenue intelligence, and now they're going across several of the other areas, and definitely an amazing company that can help you sell more. So our title topic today with Bethany is Board Insights: Why Box was the best performing SaaS stock in 2022. So it'll definitely be fantastic, and she's got lots of other great insights that we'll get to as well. So by way of background, Bethany and I actually worked together at HP. I don't know, I guess I didn't even do the math, probably 10 years ago or so.
A little while ago.
Say it ourselves. Lives in the Bay Area. And besides work, her interests are skiing, hiking, biking, mother to 5, grandmother to 7. I just have to say a little softly, and certainly a mentor to many. So some of our past mutual friends I got some great tidbits from. So Dave Donatelli, who we both had the pleasure of working for at HP, said Bethany is a CEO or former CEO of many talents. She successfully managed and sold Ixia as CEO and board member. Prior to that, she successfully built the HP networking business into the number 2 global market share position, which we did together, which you were leading, but certainly was tough. Earlier in her career, she was a successful marketing executive. She's a great person and teammate who has earned tremendous respect in the enterprise market. So kudos from coming from Dave, and also Sue Barsimian, who's fantastic, and we had on last year as well. Bethany is one of the smartest and most effective executives I've worked with, both at the corporate and board level, with serious technical and go-to-market chops, plus a level head with no time for drama. You just get shit done, and she still takes time to live life. So excellent coming from Sue. And as I said, I had the pleasure of working with you as we were taking share and growing the networking business at HP. And even though you're a mega senior exec, you're always really responsive. You're always helpful in any account, partners, and certainly a great person to work with. And if you're allowed to say it, still go into battle with. But anyway, so let's jump into the questions here so our audience can gain some incredible insights from you. So you certainly have a great background, but interestingly enough, your first job was actually in the classified area of Lockheed Martin.
That's right. Yeah, I started my career at the Skunk Works, which is a division of Lockheed that is considered carved out black. And it's pretty famous. It was started by Kelly Johnson, who built the SR-71 Blackbird and the U-2. And I worked on the F-117A stealth fighter. I had responsibility for certain parts of that airplane. Very small as a engineering project manager.
Oh, fantastic. And then you certainly did a lot after that. So maybe kind of quickly go through your career after that.
Sure. So I thought I would be building either something, stealth fighters of varying kinds, or non-nuclear things that we lobbed into space. That's what I thought I'd be doing for my career. But a friend of mine happened to go to Apple Computer, and I met him one day in the credit union or something. He said, "Hey, you want to go to Apple?" And I'm thinking, what could I possibly do at Apple Computer? He said, "Well, you could be a program manager like what you do at Lockheed." And I actually applied and was given a job. I got a job. So I started at Apple in the technology industry. I moved from there to a little company called Cisco Systems that my parents thought was a food company. I spent several years there as a product manager, and I also worked in the supply chain area. And then I went on to startups like everybody else in the .com days. and finally ended up moving into public companies like Blue Coat and HP. Probably my biggest company that I worked for was HP. At the time, it was, I think it's 120 billion in revenue. It was crazy. And ended my career in operating roles as the CEO of a public company called Ixia, which in the networking industry, very well known, network test, visibility, and security products. So it was a really interesting ride. I was very, very blessed, and I also learned a lot and enjoyed it.
Fantastic. And you're on some killer boards as well, right?
I sit on 5 boards. I sit on 3 publics. I'm the chair of Box, which is just a great honor. I also sit on the board of Sempra Energy, which is a large holding company for utilities and liquefied natural gas and renewables. And I sit on the board for Lam Research, which is semiconductor manufacturing equipment. Those are all publics. And then I have 2 privates. One is EFI, which is a digital printing company. And the other one is Ambry, which is it's a new board for me. It's batteries made with renewable materials, particularly for the grid. So those are my boards.
Awesome. That's great. So we've had several board members on before, but really not as many that are that versed, kind of, I'll say, in the public company side of things. What are some differences between being on the board at a public company and a private company?
I think it depends, but for the most part, I would say, obviously, very much more thought around and work around governance in the public markets, and that's because of the stringent requirements of the public market regulations and really the transparency that is owed to the public market. In the private market, in the private sector, I would say you're a bit more engaged actually at a deeper level in the company, doing operating activities or looking at operating activities more closely. So it's just a little different way of working with companies, but I actually enjoy both.
That's great. And for those watching, sorry we had to reschedule from last week, but feel free to post any questions. This is on LinkedIn Live, so you can either see us or hear us. We cannot see you, we cannot hear you, but if you type in any comments or questions, we'll be happy to get to them. And as always, we have Tucker behind the scenes. Tucker, thanks as always for your help. So you're super accomplished board member, CEO, and why the heck would you ever have taken 18 months to go to NYU to get a master's in cybersecurity risk and strategy? And you already knew security. So what was up with that?
I know. So I have this weird habit of every 10 years I go and get another degree. So I got a degree when I was 50. I got my MBA. And actually, I was working for Dave Donatelli at the time. And I didn't tell Dave because I was worried he'd be mad at me because it was like, you're supposed to be focused on the job.
By the way, he did the same thing when he was at EMC. He did the weekend.
Oh, is that right?
But I'm sure he would have torpedoed it. Just like when we asked, hey, can we be on boards? No, I'm not on board.
No.
Yeah, so that was a smart move.
So I didn't tell him, even though I was like, upside down, being in China and working on papers and stuff. It was crazy. Anyways, I finished that. And then, I've been, as you know, the networking business unit had security products. We had Tipping Point, if you recall. So I've been in the security business for a long time. But when I got on boards, one thing I really felt very passionate about was the kind of risk associated with companies who might get hacked or who are targeted by different nefarious groups, and what could happen to them, and the kinds of things, whether it was IP loss or whether it was reputational loss or damage to customers, that kind of thing. And so I really felt that I wanted to learn more in that area. And of course, it was coming up on 10 years. So I thought, hey, I'll look at a number of different things. I looked at certifications. And honestly, the thing that was most appealing to me was NYU had a program that combines technology. So I actually learned how to code, which was funny. So I learned how to code. And then so technology, governance, law. It was part Tandon School of Engineering, part law school. and then also cybercrime. So it was really interesting. I mean, I even learned how to launch attacks. And I can tell you that if I know how to launch an attack, they are very easy to do. So you should be very afraid, okay? So it was a very good thing to do because I could take that knowledge and bring it to the boards that I work on. And I do a lot of speaking to other people on boards about cyber risk and what we need to think about as board members to make sure that we do everything we can to keep our companies safe. And of course, you've got to, the fact of the matter is, there are 5 countries in the world who can get into anywhere at any time, no matter what. But you have to do everything you can as a company to help yourself be safe, and if something happens, to detect it. So that's what I spent, why I did that. And it was my 10-year anniversary. I had to go do something. So anyways.
Wow. That's amazing. And then what about, you also have a role at Cirrus Capital Group?
Yes, I have worked with Cirrus Capital, which is a private equity company, since 2018, since I sold Ixia. And I really like them. They're a wonderful company. They're headquartered in New York. They focus on oftentimes companies in telecommunications and telecom infrastructure space. And I've been an executive chair of a company called Pulse Secure, which we sold a couple of years ago. And then I'm also on the board of, I helped work on Take Private EFI, which is here in the Bay Area. Very well-known digital printing company, which Cirrus took private, and I remain on the board. So I've really enjoyed it, learned a lot from really smart, young people. It's amazing. And also the partners are really incredible. So thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome. That's great. So let's jump into our title topic here, which is Board Insights, why Box was the best performing SaaS stock in 2022. I'm sure everybody knows them, but maybe give us a little bit background in terms of what Box does, obviously as a content management platform company, but share with us some more maybe.
Sure. So I am very, very honored and happy to be on the Box board. Aaron Levy, who is the CEO and founder, along with Dylan Smith, who is the co-founder, Dylan is the CFO, founded the company in Aaron's dorm room at USC in, I think, 2005. Yeah. Wow. Very young, and he's still very young, but it was quite some time ago. And I believe they went public in, I want to say 2015, maybe around that time. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly, but fairly recently. And what they have done, I mean, these are obviously young people who've built an incredible business, and just has morphed from essentially what was the original philosophy was around basically storage in the cloud to now content management and really being part of the workflow. And it's been a phenomenal success story for the company. I've been part of the company for about 3 years now, so I'm a newcomer in that way. But it has been amazing to watch them and to do, to be a part of the board, to just give guidance and advice, as well as to really get a front seat view of these incredible leaders and their teams and what they're working on. I mean, they're one of the best places to work for in the country, and they have tremendous culture. They're all called boxers, and I get to be a boxer too.
There you go.
Yeah. And anyways, they've just done a phenomenal job. And in 2022 in particular, it was an interesting time because the SaaS businesses, as you know, have had a very strong focus on very high growth. And that's, they really have been pretty high growth for a considerable amount of time. Box was as well. However, over time, Box began to focus on a combination of profitability and growth. And I think that was wise. The board was part of that discussion, but management had to execute that. And I think they have done a phenomenal job. We are both profitable as well as we have good growth. And it really, from my perspective as a former CEO and having run a public company, I think that provides the best value for customers. I mean, they're looking for a long-term, company that really focuses on both the growth in the market and building products that are successful for the customers, as well as having financial discipline, and that's a wonderful combination, I think.
That's great. Any things, if you peel back the onion, as to why they executed so well? Any other points?
I would say that they have a phenomenal engineering team. That's they've done a very good job building that engineering team, and as a result, they have built some tremendous products. The platform is very integrated, and so there's not bolt-ons. It's all very seamless for the customer, and the customer experience is meant to be seamless. So the focus has been on, when they have acquired, it's been on tuck-ins, which I think is wise. And that platform and the experience they provide the customer, where they're part of the workflow, has created stickiness for the products and for the company, and made the customers very much value this broad integrated platform versus a point solution. So that was probably one of the biggest things that they worked on, moving from storage into content management with both feature functionality and some acquisitions. That made a big difference for them.
That's great. And then do you get involved, kind of, I'll say, in their kind of, for lack of better words, kind of their sales model and kind of sales efforts and things that they're doing there?
I'm familiar with it, and they have a really great leader, Mark Wayland, who is the sales leader for Box. He does a phenomenal job. He comes out of Salesforce. I think their account executives are very strong. I've met several of them, from all the different regions, and they have a great process. Also, they have, I think, very strong demand creation. So it's good to see them executing so well. It's just been a pleasure to watch it, and to get to, again, offer advice where appropriate, and give guidance as necessary.
Yeah, that's great. And then you also recently appointed Amit Walia, who's CEO of Informatica, to the board as well.
Yes, Amit joined us in 2022. Phenomenal CEO of Informatica. He's done a great job with his company as well. What I really like about him is, he's in the seat, right? He's a current CEO of a SaaS company, focused on same things, profitability and growth, and just a level-headed, very thoughtful guy. So we're very glad to have him, and we'll continue to get his advice as we go forward.
Great. And we have Brian says, Randy, I love the beard. So full disclosure, my wife Janet always hates it. Wanted it off a week ago, and my excuse was, okay, I have to do at least one podcast with Bethany, so when it'll be gone. Thanks, Brian. So also interestingly enough, that you're small number of people that have been a female CEO of a public company and have sold it. Any kind of unique things in there in terms of the other paths maybe for women?
Yeah, so I know this isn't the perfect answer, but I had no intent of being a CEO, actually. I was gonna continue on at HP. I was working at HP. I liked HP, and I was there for 5 years, and I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna stay here and probably retire from here. And HP had been very good to me. I mean, they gave me great one of the best opportunities of my career was being offered the position of SVP of HP networking, even though it was very hard. But I learned so much, and it was just a tremendous experience. But I was asked to speak to the chairman of the board of Ixia. They were looking for a CEO, and his name is Errol Ginsberg. He's very well known in the networking industry. And we just hit it off. It was really amazing. I hate to say it, but he passed away a couple of years ago of cancer, which was devastating. But he was just phenomenal and so bright and, just so technical. And I guess I got to know him. I got to know the board, and he had a lot of faith in me, which was really great. And actually is very similar to Dave in that way. Dave had a lot of faith in me, which I just really appreciated. Anyways, so I was offered the job, and I remember I talked to Meg Whitman about it, actually, because I was really nervous. And she said, look, these things don't come around very often for women. And yeah, you have a great home here, and we love you, and you could come back if you ever want to, but you should try. And so I did. And actually it turned out well. We grew the company, and we sold the company 3 years later to a larger test and measurement company for a tremendous premium on the stock. So my advice for women is you can do anything you dream of. Honestly, if I can do it, you can do it. It is there for you. And if you give yourself the credit that you deserve, and you have the sponsors that I'm sure you will have around you, you can do anything. So anyways, it was an unusual circumstance for me.
Awesome. Yeah. Credit to Meg for being so supportive. So a topic usually comes up is, women in diversity in sales. And my comment usually is, you kind of, the population is what it is, now that's there, but it's almost like there should be a much more concerted effort by the industry and by companies to go back into the university ranks, and even, maybe in some high schools, just to educate and say, here's sales. It can be a great career. It's not male centric. Females most of the time are better than males, et cetera, et cetera. Any thoughts or perspectives there?
Yeah, no. So I completely agree. In fact, I pushed my daughter into sales. She actually, I think she worked for HP. That was her first job, and they were hiring. And Randy, it was your team. And I said to her, hey, they're hiring. You should go apply. Because at the time it was not like, it was like 2010, and things weren't so great for, graduates. And she got an offer, and she went and worked in Arkansas. You remember that?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and she loved it. She got trained, and she was actually very successful, and she continues in sales today, and she's very good at it. So, and my niece is in sales, and they both came out of HP and the training program that HP gave them. So I really think that sales is a wonderful career for women. It's tremendous. I mean, look at Sue Barsamian, right? She's a fabulous sales leader, and it requires you to connect. It requires learning, but it also requires relationship building, which I think women are great at. So I think it's a phenomenal opportunity, and it is. I think you're right. Companies should absolutely reach in to colleges to begin internship programs for young women and young men, frankly, who are interested in sales, because they don't really think about it for some reason, and yet it's there for them.
Yeah, totally. So just to digress back. So Donna, I was rudely looking at my text. I had a few things. One was from Donatelli. So he says, I would not have stopped Bethany from getting an MBA. So we can both call BS on that, right? Nicer, calmer self, before her hair was on fire.
Well, I have to say this about Dave Donatelli. Dave Donatelli gave me the most wonderful gift of any leader, and that was the opportunity to run a business. And nobody ever did that for me but Dave. I mean, it was phenomenal. And I can't thank him enough, because I mean, honestly, I remember people going, what do you mean? The marketing lady's going to run networking? Come on. But my background was product management, engineering, manufacturing.
Yeah.
So it actually, I mean, nobody but Dave knew that, right? Because he interviewed me for my first job at HP. But he actually, he said, here, you run it. We're going to look around for replacement. I said,
Yeah.
okay, sure. But his comment was, you kind of ran circles around what we saw out there. So why don't you go ahead and do it? So he's the wonderful sponsor, and I cannot thank him enough. So yeah, maybe he loved to work hard. We all worked hard, but I think we did something good at HP. I really do.
Yeah. Good. And I echo your comments on Dave for sure. Gave me a great opportunity. He was very supportive, and at the time it was obviously interesting environment with the marketing conditions, and we had to think. We had Mark, and then Leo, and then Meg. So always it's new and interesting dynamics, but end of the day, all fantastic people and fantastic culture for sure. So Dave, I think you're obviously watching. So I know you just got on LinkedIn, which Bethany told me about. So we'll see if you can really impress us and chime in here with any comment or question. We're both going to fall off our chairs if that happens. But anyway, Tucker, we have a question from Kristen Carey, who asks, Bethany, at what point in your career did you know that you wanted to serve on a board, and how did you go about finding the right company?
That's a really good question. I started thinking about serving on a board when I was an SVP at HP, and actually back to Dave. Dave was supportive of me doing that, and so was Meg. Actually, Meg wrote me a really wonderful letter, like a reference letter at the time. But in those days, unless you were a female CEO, it was very hard for women to get on boards. And so what happened was I then went on to be the CEO of Ixia, and that's obviously unusual. A woman, female running a public company that was technical, that's not common. And that at that point, boards got interested. So I had several different opportunities come up on boards, and I chose Sempra. That's Sempra Energy. I've been on that board since I was a CEO of Ixia. And what I really found interesting about Sempra was I'm a technology person. They actually have a lot of technology within Sempra because of what they do, but it's a different industry. And so I really wanted to learn about a different industry. I wanted to learn how they operate, how their processes were, what they strategized around. And I have to say it was a really good choice because I've learned so much. I'm chair of the Safety, Sustainability, and Technology Committee for Sempra, and it's a wonderful company. So, I think some of it was things came to me, but it took a while. And my advice to you, though, I'll tell you, if you're interested in being on a board, is you need to network. You need to tell people that you want to be on a board, because if you don't tell anyone, no one will know. And there will be someone, and they may be 3 or 4 or 5, kind of people away from you who it piques their interest about you. You'll be surprised. And so the other thing I would say is get board educated. So there are lots of board education programs. And so my advice is go get educated around it. Santa Clara University has a very good one, especially for women. And then the last thing I would say is go look at the NACD. That's a lot of board information there that you could take advantage of. So there's some thoughts.
Great thought. And Kristen, just to clarify, so NACD is National Association of Corporate Directors. I'm part of it. It's easy to get on. And then a program I went to was at actually Stanford Law School, a
Yes.
board of director program. But if I remember, I think Stanford, University of Chicago, Harvard, NYU, I think are kind of the main kind of 5 or 6 for those board programs. And this day and age too, I would imagine you could probably ask your company to help you pay for it as well, because certainly it's not just relative to board, but just kind of leadership and management in general. So great question there. And then also, if from Italian for you, if it helps, Kristen. So Bethany, I don't know if you remember Jazz Sood. So she
Yeah,
was finance and ops at the time at
right.
HP. Now she's running enterprise sales at Palo Alto Networks. So she and I are on the board of a company, Ondas Network. So I think,
Mhm.
more and more the bars kind of move down, and obviously you being a CEO at the time, but I think a lot of companies are certainly looking for diverse candidates, and you don't have to be CEO. So Kristen,
No, they're not. Actually, they're looking for some specialization. Like there's folks who are looking for CMOs, CHROs, sales leaders, all these different financial leaders.
right?
You don't have to be a CEO anymore or run a P&L. You have to be a senior leader. You have to be an executive. But you don't have to necessarily have been a CEO. So things have changed very dramatically over the years now,
Yeah,
which makes
absolutely.
sense. Yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
you might remember Linda Williams too, who you
Huh?
worked with. Yeah, and she's I forgot. God, damn it, she's gonna kill me. It's either Google or AWS. I think it's I can't remember.
Yeah,
It might be Google, but she's actually on a couple public company boards as well. So certainly, Kristen, great opportunity for you out there. So you mentioned Ixia. So interestingly enough, they are on the go-to-market focus. So they were direct only, and then you shifted them over to the channel, right?
that's correct. Yeah, essentially they had been selling direct to the primarily to networking OEMs and other kinds of OEMs, and they had acquired two companies prior to my joining the company that were selling into the IT. So that's a very different market. That's very different from selling to a manufacturer of test equipment or products as a test equipment sales rep. And as a result of that, we had to build an enterprise channel, and we did. And my understanding is Keysight still sells those products today through the channel. It was very hard work, and I know Randy knows this because HP was very channel focused, but moving a company from direct to channel is not easy. People struggle with that, I think,
Right.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially because sometimes the direct, when you're selling direct, it's like, what do you mean we have to work with this partner? And are they going to do their job? And, will it really work? And why am I giving them margin and all this stuff? But at the end of the day, you choose good partners, you train them appropriately, and you sell together. It's a team sport, right? And good things happen. And then that happened I think with Ixia, we ended up being able to do that. But I would say it was, it definitely was hard work. It took us a while.
Yeah. I mean, I never, common sense logic doesn't prevail, but, several companies have seen the movies. I'm sure you have too. So, assuming you've got a comp neutral comp plan for the
Right.
sales, and you say, okay, you can go at it yourself, but guess what? You can only be in one place at one time. You can only be on one phone call, or now one Zoom at one time, or one face-to-face sales call. God forbid anybody's still doing that. Or you can go through channel partners where you could have, multiples, 5, 10, 15, 20, sales resources, having sales calls, tech, sales engineering, pre-sales resources doing things. And it just, we're just the way, a lot of people's, I think, psyche are wired is kind of, hey, they want to have control, but,
Yep.
who cares about control? Just worry about, selling more and making more.
That's right. And you sell more and you make more as a result of having partners and having good partners. And I think it does take folks who've only sold direct time to really realize that, right? And not go, hey, these guys are bothering me. They're getting in the middle of my deal. Stop it, right?
Yeah.
And it just takes a couple of good experiences where something good happened, or for a partner to bring them into a deal. Like that's magic, because then they go, whoa, wait a minute, these people have their own relationships, which they do. They do have their own relationships. So they're not just fulfillment. Many times they're advisors to companies. So I think it's certainly a big transition for any company, and it costs money and time, but it's a way to grow your company, right? in a pretty phenomenal, at a growth clip that's pretty good, where you couldn't have gotten that from a direct sell model. It's too expensive the other way. So
Yeah, absolutely. So culturally changing that, did you have to, I don't know what you're allowed to say or not say, but kind of, did you have to have a,
yeah,
kind of come to Jesus with the leadership team and management team and then kind of have it cascade down or, kind of,
nope, we actually did it at the sales meeting. I basically said, okay, look, listen, I'm not going to put up with this crap. We are going to channel. We are making it comp neutral. We will be doing it. And those who don't want to do it need to rethink where they are, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a strategy for the company, and you got to either be on board with that strategy or get out of the way and go do something else. So we did have a conversation like that. And I mean, I said it probably a lot more nicely, but that's basically what I said. Because we had a guy who raised his hand and said, hey, why do I have to work with these people? You know, they don't do anything and I'm not giving them my margin. And it was the opportunity that I could, I could talk about this just in honest terms about, look, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And this is what you're going to get out of it. And it won't hurt you financially and it will help you. And then, we had a great channel sales leader who did a very good job. And so she really made a difference in growing those partnerships. And one last thing was, we had a phenomenal, who's still there, I'm still very close to, Naveen Bhatt, who was over, I think he's with, I don't know who he's with now, but he was in Singapore and he ran Asia. I know he has a PhD in like physics, he's really smart. And he did everything through partners already. Like he really understood the partner channel model. And that made a big difference because just his credibility with the other leaders got them more on board with, hey, this could work for you, right? So that helped a lot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you need to do that certainly in the Asia market, for sure. Yeah, interesting. So on the kind of, you've certainly been around on the M&A front. You sold Ixia, you had EFI, you took that company private, that was public. Kind of any, I'll say, advice maybe on the M&A front from all you've been involved with?
Yeah. I also was part of the selling the Pulse Secure too. And I would say that, and one thing that we did, Randy, and you remember this, and Dave actually drove this, was the integration of all the companies that were acquired by HP. If you recall, that was a big deal too. So both of us have been on the receiving end and the selling end and all kinds of different ends of that. And what I would say is that one thing that's really important right from the get-go is industrial logic associated with the choice that you're making. When I was running Ixia, we did not buy another company. We looked a lot, but honestly, I didn't see something that really fit in our company appropriately that wouldn't have, caused accretion issues or whatever. I wanted to make sure that it had industrial logic, that it made sense from a product perspective, that we could integrate it well, and that it provided more value to the customer than we could at the time. And I think that's sort of the first and foremost thing that you want to think about as a company when you decide to, acquire something. And I mean, I did not found Ixia. I worked with the founder, Errol, very closely. And according to the industry, they said Errol will never sell. But of course, he eventually did. And he did because, it was a good choice of a home for the company, good value for the shareholders. And at the end of the day, the really key thing was the industrial logic was very good. Back to that industrial logic concept. So that's I think probably the number one thing I would talk to you about is how important industrial logic is when you either sell or acquire a company.
Gotcha. And then would you say, if you're on the selling side of a company, what percent of time is it of value to hire a banker, would you say?
I think it's a good percentage. I mean, all the deals that I've done had a banker involved. So, and they have their strong capabilities and they have things they don't do well, right? at the end of the day, the CEO and the management team really are the ones who have to provide an explanation and a view of both the company's financials as well as the products that they're building, the products that they sell to their customers. And so that's the management's job. And the bank's job is to, prepare the company for sale, understand what the value of the company is, and then also, potentially in some cases, go out and look for companies that might be interested in the sale in that particular asset for them, for their own company to acquire. So I think bankers definitely play a strong role. We had a great banker for the sale of Ixia, and the same with the acquisitions on I think in HP, I wasn't involved with those, but I know they had a banker involved. And the other sales, there's always bankers.
Yeah, it seems, from my experience is you can't have leadership take the eye off the ball of running the company, because if
No.
that's through, then you're kind of totally stuck. So having somebody that can do the blocking and tackling, you can still go to meetings, but at least you're still focused.
Yeah, you're still focused on the company. Absolutely. Yeah, you can't, the numbers are the numbers. You got a forecast to hit, you got things to do, got customers to take care of, and absolutely, that's partly why bankers are a good part of the solution. Absolutely.
Definitely. So your son Sean is at Kaboom, if I'm saying that right, and
yeah.
there you go. And I saw a post that you did saying that they're hiring, so we'll give him a shout
They
out.
are.
But it's really
That's
cool.
right.
And your words were that you said that he's a wonderful leader, and he would be great to work with and great to work for.
Yes, of course, I'm a little biased, but I do believe that he's a really nice, smart kid, and he works hard, and I think his team members really appreciate him. So, and he is hiring, so that I know some folks are looking, so maybe that's an opportunity.
There you go. Do you know what the website is? And I could have Tucker pull it up. So
I know it's Cobham Advanced Electronic Systems, I believe. I want to say that. And I don't know, maybe it's casc.com, perhaps.
All right. So Tucker, if you can figure that out, actually maybe look up Sean on LinkedIn. That might be the easier way to do it. So we're doing this real time here. So Sean is SEAN, and
Yes.
then Mayer would be his last name.
M-A-Y-E-R. Yeah, Mayer.
All right. So Tucker, maybe you can do that. So if not, don't worry about it. He probably wants to kill me right now. Anyway, so I guess opposite from hiring, tied in with that a little bit, is certainly there's a lot of layoffs happening now. My 2 cents is I think a lot of companies is just sloppy performance management. So that's why a lot of folks are getting cut that maybe should have been before. But in spite of that, any advice that you would have for people that have been impacted in any of the recent layoffs, especially tech sales?
Yeah, I know there's folks looking right now, and I'm really sorry that that's happening in the industry. I mean, my advice, and first one is obviously, hopefully you're on LinkedIn because you're watching this, so please be on LinkedIn and network with people. It's funny, it's surprising that you end up people who, most of the jobs that I got during my career were through friends and through people I knew. There were only a few where they went through a recruiter, and one happened to be HP, but a lot of the other jobs that I got throughout my career were because I knew somebody who knew somebody and they were looking for a job. So you've really got to do your networking. And even if you just, have a cup of coffee with people, do a Zoom session, just connect as much as possible and tell people what you're looking for. Again, they don't know if you don't tell them. So I think that's a really important aspect of it. And the other idea is, think about, do you want to educate yourself in some way to increase your value? Is there a certificate you can get? Is there something that you can, think about from a learning perspective that might help you be more appealing or help you pivot to another role within the company? I mean, sometimes salespeople, move from selling to sales ops, as an example. I don't know. What do you think, Randy?
Yeah, I think those are great points, and I think especially you can always hone up on just your sales skills. There's certainly a lot of different methodologies out there. Medic and others. I think also a lot of the sales tech stack tools that are there that kind of didn't exist 10 years ago. Now there's hundreds of thousands, but speaking of which, Gong is our sponsor, so there's a lot of ways that Gong and others can really help sales reps really kind of sell more faster, and ultimately I think just be kind of a student of the game, right? I mean, there's so many different you know podcasts, webinars, books, and things like that that you can see, and it may be bad to say, but kind of my experiences, I think just sales has gotten sloppier over the years, not sharper and crisper, which is mind-boggling to me. So
Yeah. The other thought I would have too is if you get contacted by, so probably sometime at some point in your career, you've been contacted by a headhunter. My advice is you make friends with those people. You know who
right.
they are, right? And you go back to them in times that are tough because those are the folks who also can help you. So if you get contacted ever, just have a cup of coffee with these people. They're actually really wonderful and they'll remember you, and keep those relationships going. I mean, at the end of the day, we're people working together. And so these relationships are really the way things happen for you. So that's some thought.
Absolutely. And then we talked about a little bit before with kind of diversity into sales, but maybe more generally, other advice maybe for people that want to break into tech sales.
Yeah. I think your point was well taken about, young people moving into selling, but there's always BDR opportunities to get started. There's always inside sales opportunities to get started when you're young. And they're not easy jobs. They're not easy jobs, but you learn a lot and they train you, right? So you get trained. So that's the first part of it. But then as you get, more advanced in your career, one thing I would say is there are a lot of people in, in engineering and in other parts of the company, product marketing, product management, who could end up going into sales. And I mean, selling is a relationship that's a big part of that role. And also understanding the product and how the product is valued by the customer, because I'm sure you're all aware value selling is really important. It's not about price selling, it's about value selling and what it means for the customer to use the product. So I do think that there's an opportunity for people outside of sales to go into sales. The other thing that's good about sales is that, they're the last to go, honestly. You just don't want to cut your sales force very often, because if you do that, you lose that opportunity to get to a customer. So sales reps are usually held onto very, very tightly if they're good, and you can be good. There's a lot of folks I know who've gone from product management to sales engineering and into selling, and they're great salespeople. So there are opportunities to do it, and it's a good job, pays really well, and you meet a lot of people. So I think that's fun.
Totally. So our friend Dave Donatelli said that he's not commenting on LinkedIn yet. I guess it's part of his, getting used to it, which I guess we all had to go through. So he said, first off, to me, Randy, lose the beard. So the beard separate from you. Your vote counts, but Janet's vote counts a lot more. So we'll do that. And then he says, Bethany, you're the best! Exclamation. But as a question, Bethany asks, what are your top tips for people who aspire to move into executive management?
Wow. That's a good question. So a couple of things. First, I would say that is absolutely table stakes is do what you do well, right? I mean, you have to be doing good work at any level in order to continue your journey of growing and moving up in the company. So, and I saw a quote from Charlie Munger just yesterday or today about, the stuff that's on your desk, do it and do it well. First of all, that's the key. I think one of the first things that has to happen. And then I would say the next step is work on, you know, there's people talk about, well, go find a mentor, right? Actually, there's two kinds of people, mentors and sponsors, and these are different people. Okay,
Mm.
mentors are
Yeah.
people who give you advice and you know, can't necessarily advance you in your career, but there are people in your sphere, both high and across your peer group, who can help you move up. And you need to get to know those folks. I would tell you that, I mean, really, probably my biggest sponsor was Dave Donatelli, because he was the one who stuck his neck out to actually put me in a role that really probably most people wouldn't have seen as the right role for me. And I mean, I just was given a chance, and I took that chance, right? I said, fine. I remember I was dragging my luggage across like a tarmac in Belize, right? It was hot. And he goes, hey, guess what? I need you to watch the networking business for a while. And I'm like, what? And my husband goes, say yes. And I said, okay. And I mean, that from there we went on, right?
Yeah.
So find those sponsors, because they are there, and they may not be the ones giving you all the advice in the world, and they may not be warm and fuzzy, and they may not be a lot of other things, but they will stick their neck out for you. And they're the ones who see something in you and say, hey, yeah, that person can do that. So look for those. And I would say the next thing is, again, learning, always educating yourself, learning something new, new certificates, new skill set, new role. That's another thing that's really important. Because honestly, as much as I laughed about Dave and the MBA, honestly, I don't think I would have gotten the job if I didn't have an MBA. They looked at that. That was actually a requirement for an SVP. So if I recall, maybe I'm wrong, Dave, you can tell me, but I do think that mattered, and I had just gotten it. So there's that. And then the last thing I would say is believe in yourself, that these things are possible. Like you can do what you want to do. You have to work hard. You know, you have to be respectful. You have to take those opportunities when they come along and say yes when you get asked. But you can do this. You can do these things. You can do really wonderful things in the world. I was just kind of, I don't know. I was went from going to school to getting a job to sort of, oh, this looks interesting. That looks interesting. That's how I moved along in my career. You can do these things, completely possible. So,
As I say, you can do it. And I think you're an example of, and you know, Dave especially. I mean, Dave back from the EMC days. I mean, I thought he was crazy. He was doing supply chain, he's doing manufacturing, he's doing marketing, customer service. But I mean, that kind of just allowed to groom him to be really a fantastic technology executive. And so it's not just just being in
right.
the sales side, but take the opportunity. You may not want to be in customer success or customer service forever, but kind of doing a stint in a lot of companies that have a longer term view will be happy to kind of pluck top talent and say, okay, we do have a plan, we want to put you here and there, and if you do that, then 10 years from now, if people can have a longer term view like that, here's what the opportunity can be for you. So we're kind of getting on here with time, so a couple of questions I want to get to before we run out of time. So any examples of sales leaders that you respect and why?
Well, I have to say, I mean, so Dave's a great sales leader. You're a great sales leader.
Thank
I
you.
loved to watch what you did, leading sales, just from a culture perspective, a discipline perspective. I think that's really important in sales. Accountability. Those are things that really make the difference in sales. I mean, you have to be accountable, because other people rely on what you say and what you say you're going to do. And so I felt like, honestly, Randy, I thought you did an amazing job as a sales leader. You held people accountable. You also were a success-oriented leader, meaning, everyone got to participate in success. And when we had success, we had it all together. It wasn't just one person, it was everybody, which I thought was really exciting. Also, you cared deeply about educating folks. And I remember at at some of our what were the things where we had all the salespeople all get training. Man, you did not go outside of that room if Randy was around. You stayed in that room and you learned. You did not wander the halls. You did not go have a cup of coffee. You got your butt in that chair and you learned the products. So I think that's really important because you can't learn, what a switch does if you're sitting out having a chat with a cup of coffee. It just doesn't work like that. So anyways, I have great respect for you. I have great respect for Sue. Dave was a former sales leader that I got to work with as well. And I know he went on to do more, all kinds of things, including some level of sales within Oracle, where he ran the cloud. So anyways, I think those are people that I have great respect for. And this is, selling isn't a cakewalk. It's a lot of work and it's has some hardships, but I'm just, really impressed to be around people like you. I think you do a fabulous job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Very, 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 very nice of you. So maybe here in conclusion, so you talked about mentors before, maybe talk about maybe one or two pieces of advice that you've received over the years, and maybe one or two pieces of advice that you would give your younger self.
Well, I never received this advice, but I would tell you, I will give you this advice. And it was something that I just followed just kind of naturally. And that is to be curious. And what I mean by that is I followed a very circuitous path through my career. I started out in manufacturing and engineering. I moved into product management, and then I moved into marketing. And then I went into like sales enablement and I had a corporate development and business development, and then into a P&L leader. And so all of those things required a curiosity about, hey, what do they do, right? Like, what's their job, and why is, would that be interesting to do, and could I do that? And when I got the opportunity to do it, I said, yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try it, right? And it was always like learning a foreign language, every time I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this, but then eventually you do. And so I would say, one, be curious, because that circuitous route actually gives you a lot of breadth of knowledge and experience and empathy about what other people do in the company. And it helps you be a well-rounded leader as you move through your career. So that's one thing that I would tell, younger people. And I had a wonderful mentor, Judy Estrin, who I worked with early in my career at Cisco, and she was a serial entrepreneur. And what I was so impressed about with Judy was her ability to really kind of cut through all the noise and stuff and look at a situation very logically and kind of almost scientifically in an engineering manner, and say, this is the problem, this is how we solve it, no drama, right? And I learned a lot from that, because that's how I tried to be as a leader. I tried to keep the drama low. I tried to focus on the problem, not on people. And let's, get around the table and look at the problem together and try to solve it. And she was very instrumental in how I went through the world in my career and my operating roles. So I was very thankful to have her as a mentor to me.
That's great. All right. Well, time flies when you're having fun. You've been awesome, and we obviously could have gone on for hours and hours, but thanks for making the time. And next week, or not next week, on Wednesday this week, we have episode number 107 with Dave Valente, who's co-founder of SiliconANGLE and theCUBE. His topic is going to be the future of data in the cloud. And for those that don't know Dave Valente, he's kind of a master, been behind the scenes and front and center around all kinds of different technology movements. His kind of CEO, interviews I think are legendary, and definitely is a great person and has a wealth of knowledge. So tune into that as well. So thanks everybody for watching. Appreciate it. Bethany,
Thank you.
Tucker's going to disconnect, and if you can just stay on for a couple minutes, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thanks. Take care.
Take care.